Come, whoever you are. You are welcome here. No matter your age, your size, the color of your eyes, your hair, or your skin, you are welcome here. No matter whom you love, how you speak, or whatever your abilities, you are welcome here. You are welcome here whether you come with laughter in your heart or tears. You are welcome here. If you come here with an open mind, a loving heart, and willing hands, you are welcome here.
Good morning. Good morning. This morning, the lawns green from rain, and the happiness I felt as I passed our planted garden, and the happiness that it did not freeze overnight, which it seemed like it might. I wonder if any of you went to sleep with that fear. Ducks have come to our garden, and so far they have been very well behaved. Quails, on the other hand, as much as we love them, have been eating romaine lettuce starts we planted last week, and we have given them naughty names. In parks, there are fuzzy baby ducks gliding across ponds, one parent in front and one behind. Everywhere there is evidence of mothers and birthing and love. Yesterday, when Lou and I went to buy flowers at 8 p.m., the store was empty of flowers. They had all been taken home in bundles to mothers all over this city. So we had to go out very early this morning to get the flowers over there. New generations are being born with new ideas and new possibilities and need for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. With hearts full of thanks for the mothering we have received in all its forms, I invite you to stand in body or spirit, and let us sing together our opening hymn, number 3. In my opening words, I spoke of all the evidence of mothers that I have found around us. And when Lou and I were walking in Liberty Park, we saw 2 geese with 6 little goslings walking by them, a little gingerly. And the mother was teaching them, I thought, how to find things that were yummy in the grass. And when we walked by the park, by the hollow, we saw ducks with their little babies swimming. And in January, I saw something that I've always wanted to see. I saw a mother whale and her baby whale. And you know what they do? These huge humpback mother whales have the babies swimming right under them, and they teach them how to breathe by bumping them up. And we saw that baby come flying up out of the water and then down again. And this week, a friend we met when she was 7 years old came to see us, and now she is 40 and has a baby that is 2 years old, and she said to us, "Isn't it a wonder that we humans can have other little humans?" Still, after 2 years, she is feeling wonder, and her baby is going to call me Patty Bachan, and Lou is Lou Bachan, which means grandmother. So after all these years, our great desire of becoming grandmothers has actually happened. Mothers and children come in all sizes. In Arizona, I had a study. I still have that study there. And if you look out the window, there is an olive tree. And once, when I would walk past that olive tree, there was a hummingbird that would come up and buzz around me. And then I discovered why. The hummingbird had made a little nest. Have any of you seen a hummingbird nest? It is about that big, about the size of a thimble. And inside that hummingbird nest were eggs, and then there were tiny baby hummingbirds, and then every morning I could spy on them. And I saw that mother hummingbird going back and forth with little things for her babies. I think the father was helping too. And before I get too far with this Mother's Day service, I don't want any of you fathers feeling left out, but after all, it is Mother's Day. And in another part of the forest, we had great horned owls. And that owl was so big, and it would sit in the tree watching the nest, and then pretty soon little baby owls would come up, and then we would see that mama owl coming back, not with little worms, but with rats and mice to keep those babies happy. When I wrote my Mother's Day card this year, all I could think of, and perhaps it was the owls that reminded me, was I felt thanks for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. How many of you know how hard it is to make breakfast, lunch, and dinner? My Lou raised her hand. We also have wonderful people who are downstairs after every service. They are our hospitality team, and that means when you go downstairs, you don't just get a glass of hot water with a little bit of flavor in it. You get some really tasty drinks, and you get lots of snacks. And I am ending this story with thanks to that team. And I would like that team to raise their hands. Is there anyone here who is on our big hospitality team? Thank you for being our mothers after this meeting. And in gratitude, I have brought some flowers. Lou went early and got flowers. And I don't want to give them to you now because they will just die during the service. But I would like to invite the hospitality team to each of you come and get a flower. And then I want any of you who have done such great mothering work, imperfect as all of us do, and I invite you to come up. And you can even do so secretly. No one will be looking after the service. And take a flower or two home with you. Thank you, hospitality team, and all the mothers of this world. And now we will sing the children downstairs. Budi Maya, a Nepali mother of 55, is still desperately awaiting help. A week after Nepal's earthquake reduced most of her home to rubble. Her family of 15, including 6 grandchildren, are living in a tent with their neighbors. And after being soaked with rain for days, the tent is filled with that horrible smell of damp fabric and bedding. Budi Maya's options are fast running out. She has no roof over her head, and her meager savings are dwindling. We have not received any help whatsoever so far. We have no shelter, and we will run out of food any time now, she says. Budi Maya's family, like most in her community, are subsistence farmers who rely on daily wages for survival. She is our sister. Sano Kanchi cries uncontrollably as she looks at the huge cracks in the walls of her house, which is no longer safe. Sano, who is 42, and her husband Tulo, had always dreamed of owning a modern home, and 10 years ago they spent their life savings to build one, and now, she says, we have lost our house and are still left with huge mortgage payments. This is the end of our dream. Throughout this world, this city, mothers, and we are talking today about mothers, but in that we mean the large sense. They are struggling to provide for their children. The British mother of a student, Matthew Karapit, 23, who was backpacking in Nepal, is trying to come to terms with the death of her son. The summer I was 15, I had a job. It wasn't my first job. I had had jobs since I was 12. I was a babysitting dynamo, kind of, in my neighborhood. And I had a little brother who was 12, who was 12 years younger than I was. So I came to it with lots of experience. But that summer I went out into the countryside of Wisconsin, that's where we were living, and helped a mother whose mental illness made it very difficult for her to care for her 5 children. When she woke up in that 2-bedroom mobile home with 5 children wanting breakfast, she wanted to go back to bed. And during the summer I spent with that family, I read to the children, I played with them, and went on adventures. And I still remember the 3-year-old boy. I also cleared the house of food that had spoiled. There were strange pots of it in different places around the house, and diapers that had been stuffed under beds, perhaps years ago. I also spent the weekends away. When her husband came home, who was known to be violent, I was at home, in my home, and I remembered them, and I wondered, would those children be okay on Monday? And Monday came over and over again, and somehow they were okay. And when summer was over, we had our last story together, and I left to return to high school. That was a summer my parents were having trouble with me. I wonder if that's why they sent me out to that place. I was becoming more independent. I had become a member of Youth Socialist Action, and I marched in whatever I could against war and for peace. And I loved to dance wearing bell-bottom pants and skirts they found far too short. I was being a teenager of that generation. Those edges of love are sharp. They are the sharp parts that make love conditional. We've all found conditional love in the eyes of others. I hesitate to give you this example of my grandmother because I know she loved me very much, and I would visit her when I was a Brigham Young University student, and she lived in downtown Salt Lake City. And when she would open the door and she'd give me a hug, and there was so much love in her eyes, and it took her about an hour to divulge what she was thinking about when she saw me. She kept looking at my hairstyle and my clothing, and finally she couldn't take it any longer. My grandmother was one of those women who was perfectly put together. She reminded people of Nancy Reagan a bit, and she hated the way I wore my hair, and she thought it could be so wonderful, and I would have been so much more lovable if she'd just let me fix it up. The first hour together was really nice, but after about 3 days, I was really ready to go home. And I ask you, where is the edge of your love? Is it someone stepping out of a Hummer, and I excuse myself if anybody out there has one, but is it somebody in some, or even a Porsche, or is it someone blowing smoke out of their car when you drive by with your windows open? Is it someone with large diamond rings? Is it someone with 6-inch heels? Is it a badge that says elder on it? I want you to really think about the edges of your love. I believe that working with the edges of love is how being a parent and being a child can be transformative. You experience as a parent what I urge you to experience together in this community. I urge you, when you reach those edges of love, that you take a deep breath, or many deep breaths, and somehow keep forging on, like Buddhi Maya, like the woman who lived in the Wisconsin countryside. And if you pray, pray for resources to be able to stick with it. Prayer is a source that has helped many, that has helped me many, many times. And there is meditation, which I have heard called a listening prayer, has helped many people go through being human, parenthood, motherhood, simply living with grace. A daily practice of meditating on compassion is how the Dalai Lama can deal with the Chinese in a loving way. Instead of what would be natural, would that he would be a terrorist. That's what would naturally come out of his experience with the Chinese, and somehow he is able to look at them, to treat them with love. Have any of you ever experienced unconditional love? I don't think that we can understand unconditional love until it is directed towards us. Most of the time, it takes more than one person to fit together that unconditional love. Sometimes it takes a grandmother and a mother and somebody next door and perhaps a stranger to make the love we have in our lives whole. And when we experience this kind of love, it is a huge gift. It is, I think, a miracle. I want to tell you about when I experienced that. It was when we moved to Arizona in 2007, after 24 intentional years outside of this country. We met an 84-year-old woman named Marjorie Tyndall. Her husband is with us today, so this may be difficult for me, so I will take a deep breath and forge through. But But Marge gave us unconditional love. And she filled in all of those gaps that had been left open. She became our Arizona mother. She would talk about how she had claim jumped us. And her love changed our lives. She loved us exactly as we were. Her love was like warm May sunshine, and it opened my heart to the world and to the possibility of a loving universe right at the time I was feeling a call to ministry. Marge believed in us. She knew in her heart I would be a good minister, even though she didn't like the idea of it because she knew it would take us far away. Her belief and love carried us to this place. She taught me of the transformative power of love. Love is not a Hallmark card. Love is a raging river of life. Mothers out there may be wondering how Marge's love went over with our mothers, our birth mothers. And little by little, instead of separating us from our birth mothers, she opened us to a fuller, more honest relationship with them. Love in one area does not decrease love in another. Love has a wonderful way of multiplying. And sometimes a mother or sister or stranger or friend can save our lives. Last month, I went to a retreat for Unitarian Universalist ministers, and I met an old friend. His name is Shandor Kovac, and we sang together in Poland last year. He is a Unitarian minister from Transylvania, and we had the rare chance for him to tell his story. He began his story in 1916, but he is only 45. He began his story in 1916 because that was the year that the Germans invaded Transylvania, and all Hungarian-speaking people were at risk. His great-grandmother hid with other families in this big barn. His great-grandmother had his grandmother, a little baby, in her arms. And for some reason, the baby started to cry, and they tried to quiet her, and the mother had to make an awful choice, and she took the baby close to her, to the cloth of her dress, so that the baby would not be able to breathe. She made a very hard choice. Excuse me, sorry. Breathe. But what happened was that the baby's sister, who was 7 years old and deaf, saw what was happening, grabbed the baby, and ran into the woods. Both the baby and the sister survived. They were the grandmother and the great aunt of Reverend Shandor Kovac, who told this story. I had 3 grandmothers, he said. So I wonder how we can be that sister who completes the work of mothering. The baby needed her mother and also needed her sister. Tragedies such as this one are happening all around us. Once, when Lou and I were walking to Sugar House Park, we ran into a woman in distress. She was standing in the middle of a sidewalk crying, "I didn't intend to hurt." And there was a young man in uniform who stood near her, and he was feeling a little annoyed. It took us a couple of minutes to realize they were talking about a dog. She, a dog lover, had hit a dog with her car, and it seemed that it was fatal. "I didn't mean to hit the dog. He came out of nowhere," she said. She was weeping, and without thinking, because I was right by her and she was looking at me, I just opened my arms, and we stood on that sidewalk for a few minutes, just holding each other. And 20 years ago, when I was crying and alone in a train station in Japan, Mato-san, who we had only known as the man who sold us fish and delivered it to our house, came to me, saw me crying, and in a very un-Japanese way, opened his arms to me and held me. May our eyes open to see strangers as children and be open to offering the comfort of a mother. May we not judge the decisions that women make, mothers make, out of poverty, out of mental illness, out of fatigue, and simply out of our imperfection, or because there is an army waiting outside where they are hiding. May we have a generosity of spirit to be mothers to people we will never meet by supporting immigration bills that keep families together. May we have the generosity to be mothers to strangers and to each other in this place. May we allow others to be mothers of our own children. They may have that piece of puzzle that will change the life of our children. One mother who lived across the street from us for a while, when she was out with her child, she would do something and then she would regret it, and she would say, "Oh my goodness, he's going to have to work that out in therapy later." And as we look back, if we find what our mothers did not give us, let us search to understand and hopefully forgive the limits of their love. In that search, we may find a wellspring of love for ourselves and eyes to see those mothers who walk around us, for they are everywhere. Love can change your life. I have seen the transformative power of love at work among all of you. Next week, we are going to gather for a congregational vote, a meeting, and there will be a vote about whether I will stay or not. And I want you to know this: whichever way this vote goes, this community is the baby, not me. I want you to take what you know of love and mothering with you to this meeting. And if you do, all will be well. Together, we are learning the practice and the way of mothers here in this place. May we continue this work. May it be so. Amen. I now invite you to stand And we are going to stand in a circle this time to sing our closing hymn, We Are Dancing Sarah's Circle, hymn number 212.